But it's
So
not
we
so
can just keep.
genuine. All right.
Okay.
I will do it after we talk, okay? I'll do it after we talk.
Okay.
All right. Good morning. Um, Today I have Mr. D again for our second round. We did an interview with Mr. D, which is a 5-part series where we spoke about addiction, we spoke about recovery, we spoke about general mental health issues. And he told us about himself in that interview series. And if you have not seen it, please find time and watch it. It was absolutely wonderful. Now, during that interview, we had agreed with Mr. D that we'll do a couple of discussions within the series between him and I. And today, we are doing another one of those very important concepts that are used in 12-step programs of all sorts. And that concept is called one day at a time. Mr. D, will you please introduce yourself again and say hi to everybody, and then we can start on the discussion.
Hi, my name is Mr. D, and I'm an addict, alcoholic, and I am in recovery. So I'm really grateful to be here today so that we can share our ideas about recovery. That's me.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So let's talk about this concept of one day at a time. Um, and this concept of one day at a time, I found that it's been around for a while and is being used by clergymen. It's been used in religion. It's been used in recovery circles. It's even been used in mental health circles. What can you tell us from your perspective about one day at a time, starting basically with um, where you think it comes from and how you were introduced to it?
It comes from a prayer, the concept of one day at a time, and I think how it got introduced into the program was through the prayer, the one prayer that's universal in the 12-step program, serenity prayer. Serenity prayer goes, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And then that's the usual one, which is said at meetings. But then it goes on to say, living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardships as the pathway to peace, taking as he did the sinful world, as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that he will make all things right if I surrender to his will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with him forever and ever in the next. Amen. And that's the whole serenity prayer. And it's written by, what in the name, neighbor something. But if you Google just serenity prayer, you'll be able to pick it up. And basically, I was quite excited to pick out that one day at a time and one moment at a time actually come out of that prayer. But because I think that the fellowship dropped the rest of the prayer because the rest of it has a religious connotation. And the 12-step program is a spiritual program, and it is non-religious. But yes, that's where I believe one day at a time came from. Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. So I did Google it. You know me and my fast fingers.
Okay.
I just Googled who wrote the Serenity Prayer, and Google answered me and said it's Reynold Niebuhr. I don't even know if I'm saying that correctly, right?
Yeah.
And he brought us this prayer that we use at the beginnings and at the endings of our fellowship meetings, and it reminds us of this concept of one day at a time, So thank you so much for reading for us the entire prayer, because I think it's quite important in recovery for us to be able to understand the beginnings of things, so that when we get a little bit confused, at least we know what the full version is, and where it comes from, and perhaps build that into our lives. Now, the next question I wanted to ask you is, why is this concept of one day at a time so effective, especially with addicts, alcoholics, with people with mental health issues? Why is it so effective with people who can't deal with life on life's terms, so to speak?
Well, to answer that, I'll use my personal experience on how I started using it in my life. I think I had been sober a couple of months, about 2 months. And in the following month, I was supposed to have my wedding ceremony. I'd been married for 11 years, but we had never done a wedding. So it was time to do the wedding, and it was going to be done far away from Soweto and Joburg. So, and I'd not really invited the people. So I knew I was going to be alone out there. And my mind started thinking, do you remember when we were boys at school? I remember very clearly when I was doing my matric, we used to talk about the fact that you can stand in front of the priest and say, I do, without something inside of you. You just have to have something so that when you stand in front of him and you say, I do, you must have that vavavoom inside of you. And so my mind started thinking about that. So am I going to stand in front of the priest and say I do without? And I was thinking, maybe, you know, and I let go of it. And the following day, the idea came back again, and it started gaining momentum. There's something that they say to us. They say, you cannot stop birds flying overhead, but you don't allow them to nest on your head. And so, same thing, the thoughts, I allowed them to start nesting in my head. And this idea that, you know what, I'll go to Zululand, I will drink for the last time, and then I'll come back and start the recovery fresh. And as the days got clear and nearer to the wedding, this idea was becoming stronger and stronger. Fortunately, I was going to meetings regularly. And I believe that going to meetings touched a button somewhere in my head, and I got scared. I said, what am I saying? What am I saying? Am I thinking that I'm not alcoholic enough that I can go back and drink and then come back again? Why have I been calling myself alcoholic for the past 2 months if I can make decisions like I'll go and drink again and then come back again? There's something not right in my head, you know? But there was this very strong feeling that said, for the last, you know? And so while I was still having that in my head, I had a session with my sponsor. I went and saw him. We had a chat. And by God's grace, when we had just finished, my sponsor went to his bedroom and came with a pack of magazines, you know? And the magazines were two sets of magazines, the Grapevine, which is the international meeting in print for AA, and then the Rechtmaker, which is the local one. And when he came with the two, he just gave them to me. They were old magazines because he had been in the fellowship for a long time. He just gave them to me and he said, go and read. And I took them, thanked him, went into my car, drove back home. And when I got home, I started just scanning through them. And in one of them, right at the top, it said, one day at a time. So the moment I looked at that, I was quite excited. I went into that magazine and I looked for the article on one day at a time. And it related the story of a lady who had gone to rehab, had stayed her stay there, her period, came out, and now she was invited to a party with her husband. And she says, I started worrying. Should I go to the party? Should I not go to the party? What must I do? What must I not do? Will I drink? Will I not drink? And then after discussion with the husband, they came to the conclusion that no, let's go to the party. And so they went. They decided to go. But it was a week away. And she said, from the day they agreed to go to the party, oh God, she did not sleep. Because at night she was thinking of the scenarios. What would happen? She could see herself walking in to the hallway. There is always that punch. She could see herself going into the dining hall. There is that white wine when they have the first meal, the red wine with the red meat. She could see the liqueurs with the cigars for the others and the coffees and for the others. And she could see that she wouldn't be able to survive this thing. And so she worried about it first night, second night, third night. And she says on the last night, she actually did not sleep at all. And eventually the night came. And on the day of the party, they went. And when they entered the hallway without any mistake, there was the punch. And the husband went and took a sip and said to her, you can have it. Fruit punch. And so now she had the fruit punch in her hands and she says, but I never enjoyed my fruit punch because my head was already in the dining room table. I was imagining, what am I going to do with the white one that comes with the fish? So she didn't enjoy the punch itself. And then the time came, the bell rang, and they went to the dining table and they all sat down and there was no wine. The waiters came and they served the fish, and they all had fish. And she says, I didn't enjoy my fish because my head was saying, when we're done with the fish, the red meat is going to come with the red wine. So she didn't enjoy the fish. And then the roast came and it was put on the table, it was displayed, and then it was carved, and there was no red wine. He says, I didn't enjoy the red wine because my head told me something in the dessert must have alcohol, or after that we'll be having liqueurs. And so she didn't enjoy this particular meal that was in front of her. And when it was over, then creme brulee and jelly was served and pudding. And there was no liqueur. And then the guys decided they're going to smoke cigars in the study, and the ladies had coffee, and there was no alcohol for the whole meal. And before she knew it, they had to take their jackets and they were going back home. And she says, goodness me, the two concepts have become very clear in my mind. One, I think I now understand what one day at a time means. Because for the past week, I didn't live the one day I was in. I was already in the party. So for 7 days, her mind was living in that party and was not in today. It was not focused on today. And then she says, when I got to the party, I got to understand. When I looked at the party, I got to understand one moment at a time because there was no moment where I was present. I was always in the future. When I had a punch in my hand, I wasn't thinking and feeling and tasting the punch. My head was already in the first course, fish. When I was eating fish, my head was already in the roast and red wine. When I was eating roast and red wine, my head was already in dessert and liqueur. So I was never in the moment. And she says, for the first time, I realized how much I have been losing my whole life because I am busy with the future or the past. I am never in the moment. I am never in today.
Hmm.
He says, now it started making sense what people mean when they talk of one day at a time. I need to put my attention on today, and not only on today, but on this moment. And that's how I started interacting and using the concept of one day at a time. Because after reading this article, I decided, oh, I really don't have to worry about Zululand going to my wedding. There's no need to worry about that. It's not today. All I need to focus on is today. And so I asked myself the question, what do I want today? I want to stay sober. And that's it. I don't want to pick up this drink just for today. And then I'd focus on what do I want now? And what am I doing now? You know, the Al-Anon Fellowship, they express this one in a nice way, presence. And they say when you're washing dishes, put your attention on the dishes themselves, the smell of the detergent you're using, the temperature of the water, the texture of the dishes and the pots, and all your attention. Don't be thinking about something else. Keep it at what you're doing at this moment. And so if you're driving, put your attention on your driving. You know, what are the sounds that you're hearing? What are the temperatures? What is the road looking like? What are the other drivers doing? What's going on behind you? You put your attention where you are. Most of the time, we get into the car, we start the car, and the next thing you're getting off how you got to your destination because the mind has been busy with something else. It's been somewhere else. And so we don't do one day at a time. We don't do one moment at a time. And that is the cause of misery.
Yes, yes. Yesterday I had a share. I was asked to do a share at a meeting, and I thought about our topic that we will be speaking about today. And I thought to myself, I've heard this concept of one day at a time so many times, and I haven't really gone deep into it to understand why it is so important. So I decided to go on the internet and Google one day at a time. And I'm saying this because you just spoke about Al Anon, and Al Anon is a sister fellowship to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I found a book that Al Anon has as their text, and it's called Courage to Change.
Mhm.
And Courage to Change one day at a time in Al Anon. And I looked at this book, I looked at the summary, and I looked at, why is this a full on text that Al Anon uses, And I started searching around and I was like, but there has to be something in Alcoholics Anonymous that speaks of one day at a time, since this is a concept that we all live by. And I found something that I would like to share with you, if you don't mind. This text has become one of my favorite texts these days, and it's called Living Sober. And
Mhm.
within Living Sober, chapter 3 or number 3 in Living Sober speaks about using the 24-hour plan. And it explains to us as to why one day at a time is so important. Because when we were actively drinking, we were able to say to our families, to our loved ones, oh, please trust me, this is the last time I'm drinking. I promise I will never do this again. And a few hours later, we will be there drunk again. And we were determined when we made the promise, that we will stay off alcohol. And we meant it. It came straight from our hearts. And it says in this using the 24-hour plan, if you don't mind me reading this paragraph here, it says, we always took the pledge. We never used the words on the wagon, and we never used the words taking the pledge. They remind us of our failures, it says. And then it says, although we realize that alcoholism is a permanent, irreversible condition, our experience has taught us to make no long term promises about staying sober. We have found it more realistic and more successful to say, I am not taking a drink just for today. Even if we drank yesterday and we can plan not to drink today, we may drink tomorrow. Who knows whether, well, we will even be alive then, you know? And I found this reading so pertinent to the conversation that we're having now. Would you like to perhaps add to that reading that I found in Living Sober as a practicing one day at a timer?
Well, it's quite interesting that um, in the first year, I sort of avoided my drinking buddies because some of them were friends and most of them were just drinking buddies. So I wouldn't go in those areas. And so I said to these guys when I stopped drinking, I didn't start off by telling them straight that I've stopped drinking. I said, the doctor has given me the red card. And they said, what red card? He said, I shouldn't drink for the next 6 months for my health. Oh, they supported me and all that. And then after that, when the 6 months was over, they reminded me, say, hey, buddy, 6 months is over now. I said, no, look, guys, doctor gave me a red card for 6 months. I'm giving myself another 6 months, red card. so that we make sure that everything is okay. But after the end of the year, I was now, more confident about what I was doing. And so the next time I visited them, they poured me a shot and they said, D, how about the shot? And I said, no, thank you, not today. He said, what? I said, no, I'm not going to drink today. And they said, okay, that's fine. And so a couple of weeks go by and I meet them again and they pour me a shot. They say, D, and I said, not today. And then one of them says, okay, let's put this clearly now. This not today thing, you did it last time. You don't want to drink. Why don't you say that to us? And I said, no, there is one thing that I am very sure, and I'm going to use that only. And they said, what's that? I said, I'm dead sure I don't want to drink today. And they said, what about tomorrow? I said, I have no idea.
Yes.
I have absolutely no idea what's going to happen tomorrow. I might drink, I might not drink, but I'm not bothering myself. I'm really concerning myself with the decision that I've made for today. So that became, and then they said to me, "Oh no, you're just telling us you don't want to ever drink again." I said, "Be careful, guys. I'm not ever going to use that because we don't own." There's a a story that I heard about tomorrow, which sort of explained this concept of we don't own tomorrow, or in fact, tomorrow doesn't exist. You know, they say this guy, young guy, was coming from his usual haunts, and he passes this uh, watering hole, and for the first time, he notices this new place, and so he goes inside, and in bold letters is written "Free beer tomorrow." So he looks at that, he buys two, he has his two, and he says, okay, I'll come back for my free beer tomorrow. So, so the following day, he comes over, he drinks his normal haunts, and then he comes, before going home, he goes to this place again. And when he gets to the barman, he takes out enough money for two beers. He says, give me my three beers. But he gives him enough money for two beers. So the barman takes the money, puts it in the register, and says, and goes down into the fridge, brings out two beers. And he says, hey, where's my third beer? He says, which one is that? Says, my free beer. He says, yeah. Says, yesterday I was here and there was a promise here that I will get a free beer today. The barman says, no, I think you've got it wrong. He says, what do you mean? He says, where did it say they would give you free beer today? He says, no, on the wall. He says, okay, can you look at the wall and read that to me again? And so he looks at the wall and he says, free beer tomorrow. He says, you got it. Free beer. There is no tomorrow.
I love it. I love it. So I went to a holiday with two of my old friends, and we went to Paris. Okay, because Paris is this nice small town where you have mountains and waterfalls and beautiful waters, and where we went, there were absolutely no shops. So we went there unprepared, all right? And then we found out there's a small little tuck shop in this small little town in Paris. And all they sell is bread, milk, like necessities, you know? And next to this tuck shop, there is this bar. I think the bar closed down a long time ago. And in front of the bar, they had the sign, the very same sign that said, "Come tomorrow for your free beer." And I think I took a picture next to the sign, and I think I will put it on, because I think we're talking about is is really important for me now, because not only can I change what happened yesterday, but I don't know if tomorrow will even come. Um, and when things really get tough, and I start asking my higher power, but when are things going to get better? It dawns on me that this moment that I am talking to Mr. D, is the only moment I have. And when things really get hard, I then, compress it to 1 hour at a time. I compress it to 1 minute at a time. I compress it to this very moment, you know? And me studying psychology now, I find that the same concept is being used for people with depression, with anxiety, and other mental health related illnesses. Because when I suffer from depression, it means yesterday is haunting me. When I suffer from anxiety, it means I am too worried about what will happen tomorrow. So, from that kind of perspective, would you like to perhaps talk to that? Being in the present, being aware, being in the here and now, how important is it for us all?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, there we go.
So it's important for us to use one day at a time, because we spend most of our lives either anxious or worried. We're either in the future or we're in the past. And therefore, we don't engage with the moment. And if we do try to engage with the moment, we actually deny it. We judge it. We make it wrong. And this is where the concept of living life on life's terms, accepting life for what it is at this moment and not what I think it is supposed to be. So our challenge then takes us to this idea of acceptance, that I need to move my attention away from the future and move it away from the past, but to accept the present moment and to engage with the present moment. Because when I do that, then I'm able to enjoy the present moment. You see, I have found that when I am present, it is not possible to worry. It is not possible to be anxious. I'm always peaceful. That's the first thing. And when I am peaceful, then I'm able to engage with what's in front of me. What's the challenge I'm facing? What's the problem I'm facing? What can I do about it? So I find myself responding to life when I am present. And when I'm not present, I react to life. So when I am reacting, I'm dealing with the feelings that I'm having. I'm dealing with the imaginations that I'm creating. I'm dealing with the fears that I'm creating. And I'm trying to remove the feelings, the fears, and remove all these things that are in my head. But while I'm busy with what's going on inside me and in my head, the challenge out there is not being taken care of. You know? Now, let me show you an example of this thing, which is very basic. So we have a concept called HALT in the fellowship. HALT is an acronym that we use to find out, am I hungry? Am I angry? Am I lonely? Am I tired? Now, where does this come in? Most of the time when I have a discomfort and I actually don't know what is going on with me, my challenge is that my mind starts creating pictures of what might be a problem. And it doesn't end there. If it can't find anything in the present moment or in the future, then my mind goes into the past and it brings up my problems of the past. So now I'm not dealing with the present moment. I'm not dealing with what I am feeling at this moment. I am busy with what happened. And then I blow it up and throw it into the future, and then blow it up, and I end up with a crisis that never happened. But when I accept the present moment and I use the acronym HALT, all I have to do is ask myself, okay, I'm feeling discomfort. Am I hungry? When last did I eat? What did I eat? Was it enough? And if I'm able to say, no, I'm not hungry, I'm good, I'm full, or I'm just okay, and I've eaten enough and it was nutritious enough and everything was okay. And hungry also includes, am I thirsty? Because quite a lot of times we misinterpret thirsty for craving. So when I drink my water or I eat my food properly, I'm good. Then am I angry? Angry represents all my emotions, you know. Now, in the present moment, sometimes I am not feeling okay emotionally. I might be afraid, I might be sad, I might be ashamed, I might be angry, I might be fearful. So when I say, am I angry? I actually look at the whole spectrum of my emotions. Which one is going on? And if I'm able to say to myself, I don't have any one of them going on inside of me, then I say, okay, am I lonely? So do I need company? You know? And if I find, no, I'm not lonely, then I say, am I tired? Each one of these has a basic, simple solution. If I deal with it, if I respond to the challenge, then I find that I solve my problem. One, I could respond to the first one. Am I hungry? If I'm hungry, then I eat. That's all. And I'm okay. Or if I'm thirsty, then I drink some water or a soft drink or something, then I'm okay. Secondly, am I angry? If I'm angry or emotional or anything, pick out my phone and speak to my sponsor. If I can't get through to them, I take a piece of paper and pen and I sit down and I start writing. Alternatively, I go to my, I sit on my bed and I do my meditation, you know. But all these things are dealing directly with what is happening with me. I'm responding when I'm doing that. And then if I am lonely, I try and phone my sponsor. If he's not available, I phone any other AA member that I can speak to. If I can't find AA members, then I speak to any other person. And I have found that the best people for me when I'm not feeling well are sponsees also. Help somebody who is still in trouble. And if it is possible to go to somebody, then I do a face to face. And I go to that person and we have a chat and all that. When I come back from that person, I'm feeling much, much better. And finally, am I tired? Now, if I'm tired, there are several solutions to that. Sometimes I do a meditation. Sometimes I have found that when I'm feeling tired, just taking my shoes and my socks off makes such a world of a difference. Sometimes it's just a matter of changing the clothes that I'm wearing. When I get back home and I'm feeling tired and I'm wearing formal clothes, and I take off the formal clothes, I put on my shorts and a t-shirt and my slippers, and bingo, within 5 minutes, I'm feeling quite relaxed and I'm okay. And so, you know, our challenge is I have found myself always anxious about the future, or I found myself worried about the past, or I found myself criticizing and denying the present moment. And when I am able to identify I'm doing that, then I deal with the present moment. And the present moment is I respond. And I respond using the tool halt. And I found that it makes me peaceful all the time. Mm-hmm.
In the beginning of our interview, I said, my kids have a way of messing things up. In the last rally, my dear friend bought me this
Yes.
bracelet, and
Mm-hmm.
this bracelet, I've been wearing it ever since then, and it says exactly that. Halt. H, are you hungry? A, are you angry? L, are you lonely? And T, are you tired? And when she brought me this, I said to the person on the stand, I have another tea that works for me. It's not only tired, but it is thirsty, because sometimes when I'm thirsty, I don't know whether I'm thirsty for water or I'm thirsty for something else, And it works really well, because if I'm in the present and I'm aware of how I'm feeling, what is it that is bothering me, and I answer all of those four questions, and I deal with each and every one of them one step at a time, I'll end up finding the one that is bothering me the most. And once that has been fulfilled, then it becomes easier for me to then, you know, relax and understand that those things have been sorted, and therefore I don't have to use anything else to feel better. So
Mm.
to you, Mr. D, how important is today? Um, I know we said a lot about living in the present and being here, being aware, being right here. But I just want to ask this question specifically. How important is today?
Well, today is extremely important to me because, and ever since I learned, it's the only day I actually have. Tomorrow belongs to where does tomorrow exist? It's it's a figmentation of our imagination. It's a fantasy that we think about. Where does yesterday exist? You can't find yesterday. You only have memories of yesterday. The only thing that I really do have is today. And if I don't take care of today, and if I don't take care of this moment, my biggest challenge is that then when I look at it in my memories, then my memories tell me I'm not okay and nothing around me is okay. And if I rejected today and it wasn't okay, and I'm carrying memories of yesterday that say yesterday was not okay, and that's saying to me about me that I'm not okay, it means the future is not going to be okay. And that depresses me. And when I get depressed, then I start looking for a solution. When I am sad, I start looking for a solution. When I am sad, I also will transform my feelings and turn them into fear of the future. And then I become angry at myself and at everybody else. And that whole package of emotion and thoughts eventually produces my personal bondage. Now, personal bondage is the state that I lived in until I came into recovery. And when I got into recovery, I was given an opportunity to escape personal bondage. But because I'm used to it, I keep bringing myself back into it. But the more I work the program, the more I stay out of personal bondage. You know, the big book talks about the arch that we go through. And it says we build this arch through the 12 steps, and from personal bondage, we go through it and we go into spiritual freedom. And that's what I want for myself. I want the spiritual freedom. And I have realized and have learned that spiritual freedom does not exist in the past and in the future. You can only find it in the present moment. You see, for me, how I feel and what my state is the most important thing, because how I felt in the past almost killed me. It made me do things that were self-destructive. And now it is important for me that I make sure I stay in the moment and I interact with the present moment and I do the best that I can for the moment, because then when I've done the best, then my past is going to look beautiful and I will look forward to a great future. And by the way, there's sometimes there's this confusion about we don't have to plan anything. No, no, no. One day at a time does not mean we don't. We do have to take the time and write our plans down. And then we then time our plans roughly, what we need to do, so that we can then allocate things we need to do for today. So when I look at my plan, it's important to say what is in my plan for today, and I focus only on what needs to be done today. Now, the problem is that I make a plan and then my head starts living the plan. I keep just fantasizing about the future and I forget about today and now. The challenge then, I will not be able to engage with what I should be doing today because I'm busy with tomorrow. So we make plans for the future, but we live today.
We live for today. We live for today. Let's talk about ways that we can put in place on a daily basis that will allow us to try the best we can to live in the now, to live in the present. Mindfulness practices. A lot of people are now talking about mindfulness practices, breathing exercises, meditation, daily prayer, mindfulness practices. What would you like to say about mindfulness practices? And do you have a daily practice that you do to try and keep yourself in the present, in the now, appreciating being alive today?
Yeah, I do. I do practice quite a lot of those things. Like I said, I do meditation. I'm quite regular in meditation, but I'm not religious in it, because there are moments when I might meditate once that day, and there are days when I meditate 3 times a day, and even more, and I do different types of meditation, guided meditation. I do breathing exercises. I think that is important. And some people will then focus on the practice of the Eastern spiritualists like the pranayama. Okay. And so I do that. I do sun salutations and the yoga practice of the morning. Um, and all these things put together, they sort of give me this focus so that I can stay on today. The other day I was looking at my phone and a message came in, and there was a mistake that they had made in my bank. And suddenly it looked like I had a massive loan or something that I owed, you know. And when I looked at it, my mind wanted to do the usual thing, blowing it up and all that. And I was able to see myself. I caught myself doing that. And I decided, you know what? If they don't correct the mistake, I'll go to the bank and correct the mistake. But I'm not going to hurt myself in the meantime. Because when I create these fantasies of what am I going to do? Are they going to, will they refuse? Will they say this? I realize that I'll just be hurting myself. It's not, I'll be reacting. It's not responding. To respond is to look at it, to acknowledge it, put it aside and say, okay, when the time comes, I'll deal with it. And
Yeah.
I put it aside. And the following day, I got a message and that corrected the mistake. And it was that simple, you know. Now, for most of us, or let's say, let me talk about me. My biggest challenge was that in the past, during the period when I saw this thing and the time when they corrected it, I would have been in terrible bondage. I would have been cursing and swearing and worrying and creating fantasies of how horrible my life is going to turn out and how wrong things are going to be. I like using the statement that I've been in many crises that never happened. I've been in very many of them because I created all that crisis in my head and it will never happen. It has never happened, you know. So staying in the present moment is catching yourself when you're going outside of the bounds of today and say, no, no, I'm staying in today. And not only am I staying in today, but I'm also accepting. And in accepting it, the easiest way of being able to accept today is using gratitude,
Yes.
being grateful for what is at this moment. Because our biggest problem, and when we jump onto tomorrow, is because we're worried about what is not and what we wish to be, you know. But if I focus on what is and I say, this morning I'm having a great time. I'm with Tumi right now, and all my attention is on Tumi until this interview is over. And when it's over, then I'll ask myself, what's the next thing? And I'm going to put my attention, all my attention on the next thing. In fact, before we had our interview in the morning, much earlier in the morning, I woke up and to do my morning rituals. And it was exercising and stretching today. And so that was my focus. It was just exercising and stretching. And then there was a time when I wanted to look at some concept. And so I took some time and looked at the concept of selfishness, narcissism, and all that. And when I was done with that, then I move on to the next one. And I found when I sort of compartmentalize my life like that and keep my focus on one thing at a time, it has made my life much. So, yes, one day at a time, one moment at a time has become very important for my sanity and for my peace.
Peace of mind. Peace of mind. I never thought that we would take such a long time speaking about this very important practice. that we take so much for granted, you know. A friend of mine turned one today. He is sober for 12 months today. And I sent him a message. And in that message, I said, congratulations on your 12 months of sobriety. ODAAT, one day at a time. And every time I put that ODAAT, it has a special meaning for me. But I think, following this interview and following this conversation of ours that we are having, I get goosebumps because there's um there's a book I used to read many years ago when I was trying to find the God of my understanding, and I bumped into this book, and it's called The Tao of Pooh. I don't know if you know the practice of Taoism from China. I think it originated from China. And this book was taking that entire concept of Taoism and putting it in Winnie the Pooh kind of language. And I would like to quote one of the things that Winnie the Pooh says that I I find so precious in its simplicity of this concept of one day at a time. And it is Winnie the Pooh walking with Piglet, and they say, "What day is it?" asked Pooh. "It's today," squeaked Piglet. "My favorite day," said Pooh. And Winnie the Pooh says that a lot of times. "I am with you, Piglet, today, and today is my favorite day because today is the only day that we have. And because I am with you, Mr. D, today is another favorite day of mine." And thank you so much for this fantastic conversation. Is there anything that you would like to add as we close this conversation for the day?
I think enough was said for today. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity that we had to share about this. As much as I'm the one who says quite a lot of these things, I found that recording them and listening to them has been quite beneficial for me, so that I will also gain from going back and sitting down and listening to the discussion that we had. So we are recording a tool that I will also use in order to grow.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I do that all the time. I go back and I say, what do I need to hear today? Let me listen to Mr. D, and let me listen to the whole advice or that whole concept that he said. Redefine fun. Redefine fun. And you will see your days will become better. So I have
Yes.
redefined fun, and I'm so grateful that we've done another installment of these brilliant, wise things we tend to forget about because we do not record and we cannot rewind, we cannot go back, you know. And
Mm.
and yeah, so I thank you. I thank you so very much for giving me the time. And we'll do another one. You come up with the next topic, and then We'll carry on if that's still okay with you.
Definitely. I'm also very grateful for these sessions, and I'm looking forward to the next one. And it's definitely coming soon.
Enjoy your day. Have a fantastic, just for today, have a fantastic one day at a time.
Goodbye to
Goodbye.
you. Bye to your listeners. Adios.
Mwah. Bye.
Bye.